At a time of currency wars, Jerome Powell admitting there might be multiple reserve currencies, Russia being cancelled, needing an alternative, which might be the digital yuan, maybe something else. At a time where the US dollar is certainly struggling. And as Nick Carter said to me yesterday, Treasury bills, which were seen as a global risk-free standard, now are not risk-free because you can be cancelled as a nation. We're at a time of where I think the US government, in terms of the position they need to take, not in terms of can we remain the strongest country, more in a position of let's stop somebody else becoming the strongest country, is actually to adopt Bitcoin and adopt a Bitcoin standard and promote Bitcoin. Because I think the US promoting and defending Bitcoin harks back to traditional American values of freedom and decentralization, as the Republic is. But also just because the volume of Bitcoin wealth and companies within the US actually makes the country stronger. And the game theory of that, with the US tending to lead the way, would actually probably defeat the digital renminbis, digital yuan, I always get confused between the two, probably defeats its goal of becoming a challenger global reserve currency.
If you just said everything's an idea,
yeah,
right? Everything is an idea. We live in an idea where it's okay to have inflation, a theft in our money at the base layer, and that theft in the base layer, or transfer, you could call it. I know theft is harsh, but it is. But that's what it is. It's a transfer of wealth and control, because we vote for it. That people believe that's okay. If people believe that's okay, and everything's an idea, if everyone believes that's okay, that's where the world will head, and it'll get controlled. If people believe that, and it doesn't really matter what currency you move that into, because what we said before, if a currency can be manipulated for some people's gain over others, it will be, right? So no matter which digital yuan, whether it's CBDC in the US, whether it's, then you can expect over the next number of years to be really confused as what started out as small fluctuations go into bigger and bigger fluctuations, and it takes all your attention. But at the root, Bitcoin is an idea against that, into the free market. And what I suspect is going to happen is, as people do this, more and more people are going to understand. One system will drive the other system, because it actually creates more value in the other system as this is happening. And so, and if enough people believe in, wait, why should my money or my time be manipulated? And who wins by that manipulation? If enough people believe that, Bitcoin is just an idea that is going to transition, and it will become our reality. I suspect enough people are going to see that.
I suspect so too. I mean, I think it is happening.
I think it's happening. It's happening in a rate. It's happening at a rate that I don't even think we can comprehend, even in the Bitcoin community. That I'm flying to El Salvador in a couple of weeks. I know you've been there, but
yep.
It's happening all over the world. It's happening in Nigeria. It's happening in, I think 10% of the network is still in China, even though China's trying to clamp down everywhere on it, because it's an open, decentralized platform that governments have no control over. And you have to ask yourself, who is government, right? Who is this dark force of government? It's us. We control it. It's our ideas. And if we decide to give it all power to control us, then we'll give it all power to control it. But it is just that the way that's all structured is an idea. Government is an idea, and one idea one side of that idea has Government should control everything. That's what it would look like in China, and they'll look after you. And one side of that idea is freedom of ideas, freedom of expression, freedom of ideas, free market. And I go back to what I said before. If you believe government can control you and it's only a certain number of people, a small number of people, then that must come at expense of all the new ideas. Those ideas would never be seen. And most times we don't see the new idea, how great it is, until it's before us. We don't know we'll change until the idea is in front of us. And so I actually suspect that over time, there's nothing you could do to stop this idea because it is us.
So we're entering into an era which is the essentially, without being hyperbolic, it's a battle of freedom versus control. Because if the Chinese idea of control works and you want to beat China, you have to be better at control.
Exactly.
So the US has to be better at control, but in a society which is to an extent more free, you can't win that battle. But can you win, therefore, by leaning into free and being more free? And breaking down, like as an acceptance, and breaking down those barriers of government from within to win that battle.
This gets hard to even contemplate when you say from a U.S. centric or Canadian centric. I had to realize some of the things we're talking here, and realize my idea of freedom came at somebody else's expense.
Okay.
And so when we look at a whole bunch of nations around the world that effectively got cut off from the oil network, pricing of the US dollar and currency, to be able to gain advantage in trade, essentially US could print oil by pressing a button. Everybody else had to pay for oil. And so it gave some countries an advantage and it gave some countries a disadvantage. The only way to actually make that work.
Hold on, let's go back a second because I hadn't thought about that, because energy security is a huge issue right now. It's a huge issue right now. But you've just said everybody has to buy oil, but the US can press a button to print oil. Just for clarity, what you're basically saying is because of the it's about right, the dollar hegemony, the US can print dollars to buy oil at the expense of everyone else because it deflates debases their currency and it makes oil more expensive.
Right.
I'd never thought it through like that. Yeah, I'd never thought that through like that. The US gets to print oil. Fuck. Okay.
So energy is priced in US dollars today. Mm-hmm. All energy will be priced in Bitcoin. Because if you're Saudi Arabia right now, you're starting to think, just a second, I'm getting paid in less valuable dollars. I'm buying your bonds and I'm getting paid in less valuable dollars, and I can be cut off from a system.
If I do something wrong. Yeah.
And so that whole thing is breaking down before our eyes. And also energy is becoming more decentralized. And so that decentralization can't be, the way you protected it, that US dollar oil system, petrodollar oil system, is you protected it by force, coercion. And if somebody was cut off from the system, they were cut off from the entire network. And so that positive externality for U.S. citizens, myself in Canada, created negative externality somewhere else, where they couldn't. And it's all tied to the same thing I said before. If you could create an advantage for yourself or your citizens over somebody else, you will. History proves it. And so now you have, countries like China are bigger, more impactful in the global energy climate, and they're trying to get energy priced in yuan, and kind of the game is all trying to see who has the power, and that's kind of driving a military force around the world to say, trade with me, trade with me, trade with me, and it's breaking down. So back to that thought before. So we have an advantage that came at a disadvantage from other nations through this same thing, and Bitcoin fixes that globally. And so if you believe in a free market, and if you believe in your people, and what will happen in a free market is there's more idea generation, and that idea generation creates value for society. The nations that go earlier onto Bitcoin will create more talent pools and more ideas, and those ideas will move those nations at a way faster pace.
Interesting.
And what you'll see is, I don't think you need to think about what governments, what nation state, what does this look like. It's going to just create game theory between governments competing for people and talent and resources under a free market. Effectively, all that ends up happening is the fraud in a system that must be there through inflation has to be exposed. And what that means is there'll still be taxes, but nations are going to compete for, I believe in this. Here's what I believe for my citizens. And they won't be hiding through the back door. I'm telling you this, but I'm actually going to take all your money through inflation. They won't be able to do that anymore. So that will bring in a competition of, I think, a totally different political class that is actually for the people, by the people.